Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Tech Showdown. Today we're checking out a gaming laptop. It's the ASUS ROG GL753VE 17.3 inch 1080p gaming laptop. And let's jump right into it then with the exterior and I/O. So the first thing you're going to notice is the highlighter orange on the back and on all the accents. It makes this laptop really stand out. If you take it out in public, people are going to come over and be like, wow, is that a hardcore gaming laptop? That actually happened to me. So yeah, it definitely stands out for that reason. It's got the brushed aluminium that we've come to expect on many gaming laptops, gives it a more premium look to it. It is a bit of a fingerprint magnet though, so keep that in mind. And overall, this design I really like. It's nothing new, but it still looks really nice, to me anyways. But it does stand out, so if you're looking for a bit more of a minimalistic laptop, then this one is a little bit more on the kind of gamery side of things. Now let's talk about the I/O then. So if we look at the front, we see it just has a standard SD card reader up there. Look over to the left-hand side, and we see up the front you have your headphone jack. Back from there, you have a USB 3.1 Type-C Gen 1 port, then two more USB 3.0 ports, a mini display port, HDMI port, Ethernet jack, and of course your AC in for the charger at the very back there. There's nothing on the back, and when we flip around to the right-hand side, we see going front to back again, see two more USB 3.0 ports, a DVD drive, which is quite uncommon to see on laptops these days, gaming laptops that is, and a secure lock at the back there. So for all those people who are big fans of optical drives, you're in luck with this gaming laptop. And for those of you who aren't fans of optical drives, well, it's there anyway. Now let's talk about the specs. So as you can see, the CPU is the i7-7700HQ. This CPU is found in many gaming laptops. It's a very good CPU. It's a quad core with hyper-threading, so 8 threads. And it's pretty powerful. And for the GPU, we have the NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1050 Ti, the 4GB model. So that's quite a potent mix there. The CPU, it's a little bit imbalanced in terms of the CPU's quite a bit more powerful in relation to its own product family than the 1050 Ti is. But the 1050 Ti is no slouch, as we'll see later on when we get to the benchmarks. But more importantly, let's look at the size and weight. So I think this is a really nice balance. 17.3 inch on the display is good. It's going to be really nice for people playing games, watching movies, all of that, without being too massive and too thick that it's really impractical to take around with you in terms of size and weight. So I thought it was a really nice sort of balance between being not too big and not too small. Well, let's move over to the screen then, because if it's a horrible display, you're never going to want to use it because that's what you're going to be looking at the whole time. So it's a 17.3 inch Full HD 1080p IPS display. Full HD is 1080p if you did not know. So it goes pretty bright. It has fantastic color reproduction, which is what you would expect out of an IPS display, and it has fantastic viewing angles, which is really good on a laptop because oftentimes you may be sitting down on a couch and you have people on either side of you and you're trying to show them a video or something, and with a TN panel you can get, all the color shift and all the other bad stuff there, and with an IPS panel like on this guy, that's not a problem at all. The downside, though, to an IPS panel is usually the response times. You can have ghosting on a real slow one. That wasn't the case on this guy. I played games with it, and it was just fine. So the response time seems decent for an IPS display. And overall, I would say it's a pretty damn good display. I didn't have any big issues with it. I would say, though, to watch for a backlight bleed. I did see a little bit of it. Nothing too bad, but it is something to be aware of. Now let's move over to the sound quality then. So it has two front-facing speakers which go pretty damn loud. It's really cranked up if you want it to. They're also very clear, which is nice on a gaming laptop. But it did come with one big drawback, and that is that the bass is super weak. Now this is common on laptops, but some of them have gone around this by adding a sub. That's not the case on this guy, but yeah, it's not going to be the end of the world. If you're someone who takes your audio really seriously, you're going to be using headphones anyway, so it's not going to be a problem. But to get you by for all your gaming and movies, it'll be just fine. I definitely wouldn't go so far as to call it bad, but I've definitely heard better, so that's how I would put it. Now let's talk about the keyboard then. So what is it like to use? So layout wise, it's pretty good for the most part. It's a little bit like squeezed in on the numpad side, but overall it's not too bad. The backlighting looks really, really nice, and you got a bunch of functions up the top as well, which is good. Key switch wise, it's coming with the scissor switch keys with 2.5 millimeters of travel, which feel pretty good for a laptop. I mean, it's no mechanical keyboard, but it still feels pretty good. And overall, it's a decent keyboard for gaming, for typing up documents or anything. If you're a student, it'll be just fine. I didn't have any complaints there. The touchpad has a good size to it. My fingers slid easily on it, which does sound like a stupid thing to say, but some laptops have like really sticky touchpads and it feels awful. That was not the case here. Clicking worked nicely. I had no issues with it. But for gaming, of course, you're going to be using a mouse anyway. So just to get you by when you're on the go or whatever, the touchpad's fine. I had no issues with it there. So let's talk about the performance then, and how well that 7700 HQ and 1050 Ti went with this laptop. So first, let's jump into Intel Extreme Tuning Utility benchmark to see how it performed there, and the CPU scored 959 marks. That's pretty decent there. That's nothing to laugh at. That's a very solid score. Now let's move over to 3D Mark and test out that GPU. So in Graphics Test 1, it scored 35.8 FPS. Another very solid score there. And then in the combined test, which is a very hard test, it scored 12.5 FPS. So yeah, that's a very difficult test for it to run, and you see it really impacting there. Let's move over to some games, because that's more important. So in Dirt Rally on the Ultra setting, it scored 50.9 FPS. That's pretty decent. And when you drop that down a high, it goes up to 70.4 FPS. So this is a 60 Hz display, so anything over 60 FPS is good, so that 70 is just fine. Moving over to Shadow of Mordor, in Ultra it was getting 57.7 FPS. Again, that's pretty good. Not really a big problem there. When you turn it down to very high, that brings it up to 65.4 FPS. That's probably where you'd want to leave it to have the best experience. And then Just Cause 3, because I thought that'd be a bit of a laugh. On the very high preset, it got 47.4 FPS, and when I dropped it down a high, it got 55.3. So maybe drop the filters down a tiny bit, and you'll get over 60 FPS consistently. So overall, what do we take from that? Very solid performance there. You're going to be able to run most games on their second highest preset without any problems, or you could potentially run them all on their highest presets. You'll just have to play with the filters, maybe knock them down a bit, and then you'll get a 60 FPS plus experience that should be very nice on this gaming laptop. However, we need to discuss the heat and noise, because that can often be the big downside to a gaming laptop that has good dimensions and good performance, is that it can usually chuck out a lot of heat and a lot of noise. And that was partly the case this time. So let's first talk about the CPU then, the 7700 HQ. So in the Intel Extreme Tuning Utility benchmark, it went up to 84 degrees Celsius. Now that is getting pretty damn hot. I didn't see any throttling, but I think it was getting very close to throttling. So that is something to keep in mind. It was getting hot. Remember, that test is only short. It is a torture test though, but yeah, the CPU in general, even with my gaming testing, it does seem to get a little bit toasty. The GPU, on the other hand, the 1050 Ti, I tested this in Unigine Valley on the Extreme HD preset, and it went up to 70 degrees Celsius. That's just fine. I wasn't really worried about that. The 1050 Ti is quite a efficient GPU, but the 7700 HQ, being a Kaby Lake, yeah, it gets a bit toasty there. Noise-wise, it wasn't too bad. When you're doing casual things, browsing the web, you might hear the fan spin up a little bit, but it won't be anything too bad. When you're gaming, though, it can get quite loud. But of course, I'll let you judge for yourself. So this is what it sounded like during the Dirt Rally benchmark, so gaming on the Ultra preset. So yeah, that should give you an idea of the noise coming from it. I would say it's, easy enough to drown out, but it definitely isn't quiet. So it's kind of, I would say, medium as far as gaming laptops go in terms of noise while gaming. Now, battery life. So this is usually the Achilles heel for many gaming laptops, and it's sort of the case here too. So on your medium brightness, like on the balanced power plan, you'll get around 3.5 to 4 hours if you're just browsing the web, doing casual things like that, just depending on what you're watching. And if you go down to like super conservative, like power saving settings, that will go up to maybe 6 hours to 7 hours, depending again on what you're doing. If you put it on like high performance mode and you start gaming, which is obviously what you're going to want to be doing with this laptop, yeah, it's going to drop down considerably. You'll probably see about an hour out of it, and that'll be about it. So battery wise, I would say it's only okay. I would have maybe liked the battery life to be a little bit better than that. Which brings us now to the conclusion, and what do I make of the ASUS ROG GL753VE gaming laptop? So it's coming in for with a price of 2,299 New Zealand dollars over at Playtech right now. That's a pretty decent price, I think, for a really good all-rounder laptop. I think it's quite fair. That's how I would basically define this laptop. It's just a nice balance of size, performance, and features. It's just a really nice all-rounder, and I would pretty much recommend it to anybody in the market for a gaming laptop. I would say though that if you're a ultra enthusiast or somebody like that, you may desire more power out of your laptop, so you want to head towards something with maybe a 1060 or 1070 in it rather than this guy. But overall, I think for most people it'll be powerful enough. I would invest in a laptop cooler though if you're going to be playing a lot of games on it, as that will help bring those temps and noise down a little bit. But overall, I think it's a very solid laptop. And yeah, I would recommend it to anybody out there. Just be wary of those cons that I mentioned in this review. Now, I thank you all for watching this video. Please subscribe to Tech Showdown if you haven't already, and like the video. And as always, I'll see you guys next time.